The tools used on this machine are Cat 40 style body, and they could be of any type, either a collet, a chuck, set screw style, where you just tighten down that set screw, or the tool could be directly mounted to the body of the holder, like this shell mount. What you'll probably be dealing with is this collet style, and this is a ER32 style. This one here is a Kennametal style. So these are pretty easy, but you gotta understand how these work. So the collet itself is held into the cap, and to get that out, you line up the diamond. It's gonna be hard to see. The diamond is there. So you just line that up and pull away from it, and the collet comes out. So you look into there, there's these little nibs on there. That's what holds the collet in place. So if you fail to do that and you just stick the collet into the tool like so and tighten this down, you'll either break the collet or it'll never come out, because those little nibs pull the collet back out of the taper. All right, so now that we've got our tools in our tool holders, we're ready to go ahead and put them in the machine. So to do that, you gotta go to Mdi mode, and then you can use the tool release button here or the tool release button on the machine. It's always recommended to use the tool release button. It's actually on the spindle. So what we're gonna do is just grab the tooling below this lip here, insert it in to the spindle, hold down the black button, position it, and let go. So now it's in there, we can go ahead and set up our tools. So the procedure is the same for any tool using that Cat 40 taper. So what I'm going to do from any mode here, to get to the conversational mode and use the IPS intuitive probing system, we want to go to MDI, program conversational. That brings us to this screen here. So now we want to cursor over to setup, hit enter to enter that tab. We don't want work, we want to do a tool, so I'm going to cursor over to tool. We're going to hit enter one more time. So here we are. Now we got a few things to adjust here. First thing you want to do is, what type of tool is it? Is it an end mill, center drill, tap? We're using an end mill here, so I'm going to hit enter. The tool material, high-speed steel, and the number of flutes, 2, so that's already there. But if I did need to change it, let's say it's a 4-flute tool, I would hit 2, enter, and that is additive. So we're going from 2 to 4. So if I want to go back to 2, I'm going to hit -2, enter. So there we go. So now I'm ready to probe this thing. So I'm going to press F2 to pull up our IPS here. I'm going to grab a scale and measure the length of the tool from this flat surface here. We put our scale up there, and this looks about 5 inches. So make sure your tool offset is 1. It is. We're going to make sure that this is 5 inches, so 5 point. Approximate diameter, it's a 1-inch end mill, so that's just the nominal diameter, 1 point. And the Z distance is how far up you want to check the flute. So from this surface up to here, we got about 1 inch there, so I'm just going to go with 0.25. Close the doors up here, 0.25. After you close the doors, you want to make sure that all of your values are correct, which they seem to be. And then you can just go ahead and press cycle start. The tool will automatically position itself to the probe. It's going to feed down. It'll turn itself on in reverse. And it just checked the length. All right, our tool has now been successfully probed, so the tool returns to the home position. We can go ahead and open the doors now. So our tool is set up. So our actual Z length happens to be 5.1 inches. Our tool diameter is about 2.8 thousandths over. So you can see that there. And now let's go to our next tool. So the next tool we want to set up here is actually a center drill. So I'm going to close up the doors to change tools. I'm going to use ATC forward and reverse to change my tools here. So I'm going to go forward until the tool displayed is tool 5. So now blinking in red there, tool 1 is in the spindle, tool 5 is displayed. That's the tool I want. So I'm going to hit next tool, and it changes the tool for me. So there we have our 1/8 inch center drill, and that is already selected. So you can see that there. So that's there. It is high-speed steel, and it does have 2 flutes, so we're all good to go there. So what I'm going to do is press F2 to pull up our probe. Tool offset is 5, so now I just need to open the doors, use my scale to check the length. Looks like about 4.7 or 3.75 inches. 3.75. Approximate diameter, it's an 1/8 inch, so 0.125. And the Z distance, how far up do we want to check this tool? Now we don't want to get on the taper here. We actually want to get on the tip of the tool. And it depends on what you're doing here. So I'm not going to go any more than 1/10 of an inch. So 0.1, enter. All my values look good. I'm going to close my door and press cycle start. Now you'll notice that a center drill or a drill bit is checked a little bit differently. It's going to feed directly down into the probe without turning on. Now it's going to spin in reverse and check the diameter. And it goes back to home position. So we're all set up here. We got our tool diameter and our Z length set. So now I'm going to go to our next tool. So I'm going to use ATC forward and reverse again. I'm going to go forward to T6, which is a drill bit. I'm going to press next tool. Now keep in mind, I can also change tools from Mdi mode. So I can go back to Mdi mode, enter T, whatever tool I want. So let's go back to 5. And then ATC forward or reverse. So if you do it that way, you do have to go back into the conversational mode. So I'm going to do that by hitting Program Conversational. So I'm there. So let's go back. All right, so here's our drill bit. I'm going to have to measure the length of this drill bit. So my 6-inch scale is not going to cut it because it's a little too long or too short. But I just happen to know that this tool is about 7.7 inches. So everything looks correct here. F2 again, 7.7. Approximate diameter, it's 1/4 inch, 0.25. And I want to check right at the tip of my tool, so I'm going to do 0.25. Close up my doors and cycle start. So we have our tools set up. So keep in mind, the process is the same for any tool you choose, a tap, a shell mill, an end mill, center drill, whatever you may choose. You're going to measure the length of the tool, enter the tool diameter, and how far up you want to check your actual tool. So now we got our tool set up, we can actually run some parts. You can press the offset key in this display menu here. There's all your tool offsets. You got everything from coolant position to your length and your diameter. All right, so if you ever leave a tool in the machine for a few days, maybe a week or so, and you've had some cyclic loading for heating on the spindle, like it's been hot and cold and hot and cold, there's a chance that the tool might stick in the spindle. So if that happens, it's pretty easy to deal with. You just need a partner. All right, so what we need to do is we need to tap this collar right here very gently with an aluminum or brass bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the tool and press the button while my partner here taps that edge lightly while I'm holding the button. So when I start holding it, go for it. All right, and there it goes. It's that easy. So if you ever get a stuck tool, just lightly tap it with an aluminum bar. All right, so keep in mind, it is possible to set up the tools using the traditional techniques such as a height gauge, gauge block, and a piece of paper. But there's no reason to do that in this machine, so you should always use the probe. So now we got our tools set up, ready to set up our work offsets, and then we can run our programs.